everyone. Thanks for coming for this small roundtable that we have organized. My name is Pathikrit. I am one of the senior research fellows at Dr. Shamaprasad Mukherjee Research Foundation. We have been arranging these events for quite some time now, and just to put things in perspective, for the last 1 year, we have been the secretariat of the youth engagement group of G20, and as part of that, whatever you have seen in terms of the communique and the negotiations and a lot of important things that you find in the G20 draft, we had a certain level of contribution in that. And as part of Y20, as the secretariat of Y20, we have been successful in terms of having 1,600 programs across the country organized by our division itself. So we have tried to go to people, the young generation, and make them understand criticalities of a lot of things that has been done by the government of India under Dr. Prime Minister Modi, and the importance of those things in terms of how they impact their life. So one of the issues that we consider is very important, and that has been given a lot of impetus in the last 9 years rather, is the issue of entrepreneurship. I remember when I was young, our entire generation was completely inclined towards job only. We don't blame anybody for that, because our parents and their generation had their own level of struggle, so they wanted a security in the lives of their children. But over a period of time, things changed drastically across the world. Even though there were people in this country who wanted to do a lot of things, to start their own startups, to start their own organizations, the institutional mechanisms were not in place to support them. But at the same time, we believe that you cannot have employees unless you create employers. So in the last 9 years, what has happened is that across the spectrum, from the highest level, which are tech-based, to at the grassroots level, where organizations are created by people who may not have the highest level of education, but they are aspiring. At both level, there is a lot of focus by the government in terms of helping them or giving them the right kind of support base so that they can come out and create organizations which can eventually help the country in terms of creating jobs. And invariably, we believe that as the world is moving towards industrial automation and application of artificial intelligence, there's a limitation as to how many jobs can be created by the organized high-scale industry. And invariably, entrepreneurship will play a critical role in terms of making sure that sustainable livelihood is created. And in that respect, there are two examples I want to give, rather data. Number one is this, that in the last 6-7 years after Mudra Yojana came into existence, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, more than 8 crore young entrepreneurs have started their work. So 8 crore is not a small amount. 8 crore means that these people perhaps were working somewhere, then they took the risk and the initiative of going ahead and doing some ventures of their own. And remember, it is important that just as you require unicorns at the highest level, you also require these kind of small organizations at the micro level, which also create large amount of jobs. We'll come to that, and we have today a very distinguished panel to discuss these things. We have young entrepreneurs who have done it in their lives, and you have veterans who have worked for the last 20, 30 years in terms of helping the policymakers to understand the importance of creating an institutional framework so that young generation do not need to only depend on jobs, but from job seekers, they can take the quantum leap to become job providers. So to discuss that, we have a distinguished panel today. One by one, we will introduce them. I would first of all ask Dr. P. Kanak Sabapati ji, who is the secretary of Dr. Shamaprasad Mukherjee Research Foundation, and who has been a stalwart in terms of helping the cluster movement in this country and the small-scale industry to come up. He had a very critical role. I'll just give a very small brief, and I will let him to speak on that. To introduce him, Dr. Kanak Sabapati ji is an author and writer with academic backgrounds, involved in activities of public service and service organizations for many years. He has been associated with the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, holding different responsibilities, including as member of its All India Working Committee during 1997 to 2001. And he has served briefly as the president of an agricultural cooperative bank in Coimbatore district. Today, he guides us on many issues, and on several occasions on issues, we have come up with recommendations to him, and he has helped us to take those forward. So whatever you see today in terms of transformation, primarily in the mindset that even today the young generation is getting the right kind of recognition from the society when they're trying to become entrepreneur, is because a lot of effort has been put for a long period of time. Unfortunately, I remember in my younger days, I am pretty old now, that when somebody wanted to do a business, the society used to say, oh, he's trying to do a business because perhaps he did not get a job. That mindset has fundamentally altered in this country. From to that level where if you had gone to a bank for a loan, the banks would have said, okay, you want a loan, first show us collateral. That has changed today, where if you have an idea, there are organizations, venture capital organizations who are willing to fund you. Yes, a lot more has to be done, but to discuss those things, and we have a very young entrepreneur today among us, more than one, but one of them is the speaker. So we will introduce all of them. I would ask Dr. Kanak Sabapati ji to take it over from here.
Good evening. Welcome all of you. Dear Sri Madanagopal ji is joined.
Yes.
Madanagopal ji. And dear Sri Ramamurthy, who is joining from Coimbatore. And dear Amit and friends. Ranjit.
Ritesh.
Rakesh. Ritesh. Shubham. So, friends and guests. I am extremely happy that today SPMRF is organizing this very important discussion at this critical junction. Some of us are involved in studying the entrepreneurial systems of India for the last 27, 28 years. India is basically an entrepreneurial nation. When we see the history, we come to know that the first corporate sector business came into existence in India some 2,700, 800 years back. In those days, it was called Sirini. Similarly, there were several types of partnership organizations in the ancient period. And that is the reason why we remind us a very important economic power, in fact, superpower in those days. But all these changed in between. And as a result, all of us know our entrepreneurship was severely curtailed. Unfortunately, even after independence, entrepreneurship was not allowed to function freely. Some of you who have studied economics may be knowing there was Netta Babu Raj. Without getting government control, you cannot do anything. I remember when I was doing PhD in the late 1980s, I studied stock markets. There was controller of capital issues, and they had office in Delhi only. When somebody wants to start an enterprise, corporate, in Coimbatore, they had to come here. That too, getting permission was not that easy. So that was the position. But in spite of it, entrepreneurship at the local levels, they were flourishing. When we started studying India, particularly the entrepreneurship at the local levels, MSME sector, we were surprised to see the kind of enterprises that we have. So Indians have enormous entrepreneurial ability, enormous ability. You take now, there could be around 3,000, 4,000 clusters in India, industrial business clusters. We don't have the exact numbers. Most of these clusters, almost all of them, I would say, were promoted by the very ordinary people of this country, less educated, with lesser financial backgrounds. It is they who promoted this country. I come from an entrepreneurial district, Coimbatore. When we roughly calculated the kind of turnover from different businesses, we estimate that it could be anywhere between 1.25 lakh crores and above, maybe much more. So this is how businesses have developed over the last 60, 70 years. If you take Surat, the present turnover of Surat city alone could be around 2 lakh crores. There are two major businesses. One is textile, other one is diamond. Yeah. When I visited Surat last time in 2021, they told me that Turnover from wholesale business, textile business was 90,000 crores. Same year, diamond business 80,000 crores. When I asked them other businesses, real estate and other things, another 25. So it could be easily 2 lakh crores, completely built by the local people. Completely built by the local people. So we have enormous capability as a nation, entrepreneurial capability as a nation. In our region of Tamil Nadu, western region of Tamil Nadu, this is called the Kongu region of Tamil Nadu. If you see, there are about 11, 12 clusters, and because of which the western Tamil Nadu contributes more than almost 50% to Tamil Nadu GDP. So if you take the most industrialized states of India, whether it is Maharashtra or Punjab or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, you see clusters there, entrepreneurship in plenty there. So natural entrepreneurship always existed, even after independence. I remember somebody wrote, after India attained political freedom, people started entering different sets of businesses without knowing that there were restrictions at the top level. So if we take the history of these business industrial clusters, almost most of them started only in the 1950s and 60s, even though there were restrictions. So, but in spite of it, they were functioning. Severe difficulties. So whenever we used to go to these clusters, they used to tell us the difficulties that they have been facing. Fortunately, now in the last 9 years, things are changing for the better. So as a result, now we say, we know that the kind of incentives that are being given when Prime Minister Modi introduced this Make in India scheme, it was based on 4 important pillars. One was new processes, so ease of doing business was given importance. All these regulations were slowly removed one by one. Then infrastructure, we know the kind of infrastructure that is being created. And new sectors, under Make in India alone, 25 new sectors were identified. And fourth, mindset, from regular government became from a regulator to a facilitator. Otherwise, always government remained as the regulator. So this is a change that has been happening in the last 9 years. And as far as boosting entrepreneurship is concerned, we all know the government adopted 3C model: compliance, compliance of these regulations, processes, applying for new licenses. Now it has become online, 24/7. Earlier, you had to meet officials and then ministers and all. And capital under MUDRA and several other schemes, now loans are given. Already more than 25 lakh crores have been given under MUDRA scheme. And then contract enforcement, bankruptcy law change, and then arbitration law change. So all these things are happening. As a result, now we have become the third largest, startup ecosystem, if I remember right. So as per the last count, there were 111 unicorns with almost 350 billion turnover. So this is the development now. While I was going through the details, I came to know till 2016, every year there was only one unicorn added. In 2021, 45 new unicorns added. So in the last 9 years, 300 times increase in terms of when we take the number of startups. So several positive things are happening. So this we have to explain. So from being job providers, job seekers, we have become job providers. I saw a quote today by Prime Minister Modi. I'll read it here for the benefit. I quote, "I strongly believe that India has a lot of latent entrepreneurial energy which needs to be harnessed so that we become a nation of job providers rather than job seekers." So this is his policy, as a result of which now entrepreneurship is flourishing. In my opinion, our people have enormous entrepreneurial, innovative capacities. I have seen in smaller clusters people with a lot of innovative ability. So in this connection, we have experts people who are in the field, and a senior most administrator who was working in different capacities at the state and central levels to present their views. So I invite all of them. First, I invite our friend Amit to share his experiences.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity, first of all. Before I start, I would like to say I think if we see the Indian polity, there have been few shifts, and the shift that we see today.
Before he says, let me tell you something. He looks very ordinary, but he's a very rich man. He just raised millions of dollars. So, every time you need some kind of subscription or help, please call him. I'll make his number public. But on the serious note, if you have heard about the fintech company Razorpay, he's the guy who made it what it is today. Okay. So, and we had a long time, we have been friends for a long time. We had nights after nights of chat and intense discussion on severe issues. We had fights. But jokes apart, he's also an alumni of Chicago Booth School of Business. And now he is one of the co-founders of Castler, which is an escrow organization. It is one of, it can be called a fintech, right?
Yeah, it's a fintech. Yeah.
So these are, you know, when I would ask him to explain that thing in in details, but the fundamental change is that the ability of many people in the 30s and 40s to take that leap forward. There was a time when they wanted to take, but there was no support system anywhere. Today that support system is that. It doesn't mean that you become entrepreneur, so it becomes like a government job, government will come and support. It's not like that. There are risks involved. But there is today a government and its setup trying to tell you, okay, you go ahead. If there are issues, we'll try to help you. But at the same time, the most important thing is the ecosystem. It is not that government will bail you all the time, but the ecosystem is gradually being developed. And as I said, you cannot have employees without employers. So I would ask him to speak because he's a young person and he has created, and he might say a lot of things which can be an inspiration for others. Okay, Amit, over to you. Sorry
Yeah,
for the
sure. No, that's okay. Thank you so much. So, before I step into this conversation, one remark that I would want to make is there has been, if you'll see in India, there have been makers. In India, there have been dreamers, but very few people are dream makers. I think Prime Minister Modi is one of them. I think he lets you believe that whatever you want to chase, whatever you want to believe in, I think you can just get into that and you can get into the groove and you can achieve that. I think that has been one of the most important facet that I would have seen in the last decade or so, the way India has, and I don't call this India because I believe it's totally Bharat, right? Yes. And the way it is resurging and the resurgent India is very, very different. I think the paradigm and the norm has changed significantly. The way people perceive things now, it's very, very different. I'm reminded of one of the lines of Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, right? So, and which actually is very, very relevant today also, which was written in a socialist flavor, sir, but it is so meaningful today. आज़ादी है अधिकार, आज़ादी है अधिकार, खोज की नई राह पर आने का. आज़ादी है अधिकार, खोज की नई राह पर आने का. आज़ादी है अधिकार, शोषणों की धज्जियां उड़ाने का. सिमटी बाहों को खोल गरुड़, उड़ने का अब अंदाज बदल. स्वाधीन मनुष्य की इच्छा के आगे पहाड़ हिल सकता है. रोटी क्या ये अंबर वाले सारे सिंगार मिल सकता है. To make people believe, it was written in 50s 60s, but it took us almost 60 70 years to believe that whatever you want to cherish, it can blossom, right? So I think coming back to, the things that I'm trying to do and what we are trying to do as an organization, I think fintech is one area where I think the policies of the incumbent government was very, very beneficial, and we were able to see a sharp increase in overall business and everything. I think the major flavor of that goes to JAM, which is Jandan, which is your Aadhaar and which is your mobile, right? Access to information became so easy. I remember in one of the conversations, so in fact, Ritesh was working in London, so one of my counterparts, and he invited us for a conference, and we went there and we showed them the UPI flavor, right? And everybody was astounded by seeing UPI, that just by the click of a button a transaction can go through. I remember a conversation 4 5 6 years back in the parliament where everybody was questioning that will a sabji wala take UPI, right? Today it's a hard reality, right? Everybody be it remotest part of the India. I was traveling to my hometown, Patna. I was in Muzaffarpur. I was traveling to Bhagalpur. All those three cities which are very, very remote. Everybody was having access to financial instruments like UPI. So I think this is a huge, huge change. I think Razorpay was one of those, big fintechs, and I was glad that I was part of that journey. That we were able to build something and scale something which was really, really meaningful and reach out to millions and millions of population and make their financial journey more inclusive. I think the current setup that we are headed into, I think it's largely with the fact that with fintech, a lot of leapfrogging happened, right? And there was a lot of frauds also because of online frauds, cyber frauds, etc., were happening. And we thought of a reason that how we can mitigate those frauds. So escrow is nothing; it's a mechanism that you mitigate those frauds. So that is the reason that people like us exist, because with good solutions, problems also come, right? And how do you mitigate those problems and how do you solve for those problems? We recently raised close to $6 million from a couple of investors, which includes InfoEdge, which includes IFL, Zerodha, and Flipkart being one of them. So mostly Indian setup who have favored our existence right now, and trying to make this a practice, that in terms of transactions, how the transactions are more secured, how the transactions are transparent, and how people are able to weave their journey without any disturbance.
So I would also ask you, Amit, about your journey in terms of it's not easy to give up a job and then start something, because that phase, I think a lot of people will be interested to know how difficult it was. How did you go ahead? I'm not asking you to share your secrets, but in general, how the transition happens.
So, so I think I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life. The first decade was also an entrepreneurship journey that I had. So it was nothing new to me, honestly, if you ask me. And I was also one of the co-founders of a festival which was called Great Indian Film and Lit Fest. And we organized it at a very massive scale, where people from different walks of life, they used to come. So, I sold the first venture, and then probably there was a time when demonetization happened. And I saw that as a huge window of opportunity. And to do something new, you have to learn it, right? And it's a very difficult process to unlearn and relearn. Most of the people really struggle to unlearn and relearn. Thankfully, I think 2 days back somebody was asking me a question, that what is the biggest strength, or what do you consider as your biggest success? I said only one thing, which is I feel that this is a part of me. I can anytime start from 0 to 1, right? So in doing, getting endowed with that sort of understanding in your mindset, and from the background also, I was pretty much clear in the things that I wanted to drive. And being in fintech, you have to understand fintech. So then I took up a job, understood the fintech community, how the fintech community works, how the transactions work, so that I can weave something new in future, and Gassler is an outcome of that.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to add one thing. Unfortunately, many people may be here who were born in the 1990s or late 80s, and may not be aware of the license Raj that India had. And that license Raj, which was about production control, price control, import substitution, and everything to be made in small scale. I believe that license Raj era of the early days of independent India under Prime Minister Nehru destroyed entrepreneurship in this country. So unfortunately, at a time when China was talking about large-scale production to reduce cost in the 1970s, we were vilifying our industrialists like Dhirubhai Ambani. We were throwing away organizations who were making in large scale. But unfortunately, most people didn't realize that it is the large organizations that at times work as an umbrella to help smaller organizations to thrive. And the ancillary industry in that way plays a very critical role. Secondly, you without large scale production, the cost doesn't come down, and without lower cost, you cannot be competitive in the large market. Small industry is very, very critical, but it has to coexist with the larger from where the orders would come. So that symbiotic relationship is very, very important. If you look at the Reliance or the Tatas, they are big organizations. But if you look at the ecosystem they have created in terms of the large number of ancillary companies, I have seen it in Singur when the Tatas were creating that nano factory. There were around 100 odd companies in small sector, you can call them, who were setting up the factories parallelly. And when they had to wound it up, everybody had to go. And all of them went to Sanand. So that way, I believe this is important to understand today. There is, and this is where I believe that large investments, startups in the tech sector, and 8 crore new entrepreneurs all have to be existing in symbiotic way, and there is a requirement for all of that. That is where I think this government has done phenomenally well in terms of making entrepreneurship far more democratic, and it is not something which is only an exclusivity of crony capitalist. So this is where I think we have a quantum leap of faith. Sir, I would request you to introduce Mr. Ramamurthy ji.
Now, before that, I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question. What motivated you to enter into entrepreneurship?
So I believe, so for me it was more from a decision. So I had to. So when I was studying a journey in the initial part of my life, so I had been an entrepreneur all most of my life,
No,
right?
you come from a entrepreneurial family.
No, I come from a bureaucratic family. Yeah, so I come from
You
a
tell me.
bureaucratic family, but kind of a free mind, free soul kind of person that I was. I knew that I am not the kind of person who will be able to work for someone, right? So I always believed in that, and kind of when I started off my first venture, and then it led to a substantial growth, and then I left it at its top, and then. To start something new you have to learn, right? So that was the reason that probably I had to learn new things to understand the ecosystem, understand the market, and then probably get into that kind of opportunity where I can weave that opportunity for future aspirants. So I think that was solely because of that, nothing else. And demonetization, for some reason I felt it was a humongous opportunity for fintechs. And two reasons, I think fintechs, if I see the whole fintech community, I think demonetization was the one, and second was the COVID, right? So in fact, it was kind of a black swan moment for everyone, but that black swan also favored a different generational entrepreneurship in a very different realm altogether. So I think so that was sole reason that I probably
Now you must be having experience of at least 40 years in entrepreneurship, isn't it? Some 15 to, sorry, not 40, 15 to
yes,
20 years.
correct.
So now what has changed in the last 9 years?
I think the major thing which I believe changed is the belief system, right? The transparency in the ecosystem. I think the belief simply, I think a lot of problems get solved once you start believing in what you are actually trying to do, right? That belief that a normal person can deliver. I think that was the major and the paradigm change that I see in the current ecosystem. Apart from that, I think from a regulatory perspective, things were getting deregulated, a lot of problems getting solved. NPCI, the existence of NPCI, right? Today, I think I'll give you a very small example. Thinking about Rupee, right? I think as a network in itself was a big change. People were, as he also rightly pointed out, that crony capitalism, right? So Masters and Visa of the world were ruling the roost, right? Just thinking about the fact that Rupee can come into the ecosystem and we can disrupt the ecosystem, right? And with Rupee also the whole UPI ecosystem as well, right? So the way, I mean, transactions can be this seamless also, where you can just enter a pin and a transaction goes through. So that sort of experience, that sort of journey, I think it was, I mean, it was a great change the way people perceive the digital instruments, right? And today I'm happy to say that in the entire payments ecosystem journey, sir, 55 to 60% of the payments happens through UPI in the entire ecosystem. And this was the belief system of this government, I would say, that this is something which can happen.
You can tell your market valuation also official for the benefit of our, so that we can motivate them.
So currently,
Official.
yeah, currently we are valued at around 250 crores as a company. Yeah, so currently our valuation is that, but very soon I think this should be 4 times in the next year or so. So we are currently talking to few more investors. So we'll be at 1,000 crores in a year or so.
Maybe later you can speak about the challenges that you have faced and how you overcome.
Sure.
Now we'll listen to Sri Ramamurthy. He is a self-made entrepreneur again. He is from Coimbatore, which is one of India's well-known entrepreneurial centers. He headed Codisia, Coimbatore District Small Scale Industry Association. Coimbatore District Small Scale Industry Association is the largest district association, SSI association in the country, and they have exhibition grounds next only to Pragati Maidan in Delhi. So Coimbatore, Odisha has the second largest exhibition space in India for this MSME sector. So he is a very well experienced man. He has been in government committees also, central government. So Ramo, please share your experiences.
Good evening for everybody. Ramamurthy joining from Coimbatore. And as the professor sir said, I'm a former president of Odisha, a small scale industrial association. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah. So, today's topic was job seekers to job providers. So I'll put it in this way. In Coimbatore, this has happened before some 30, 40, 50 years also. Yesterday, Coimbatore is a city of entrepreneurship, but when we all became entrepreneurs on those days before 30 years now, it was very, very difficult to become an entrepreneur. We all started by our own with in a very micro level, but to come up to certain stages is totally there's a vast difference now. But when I was a president, I came to know that today for a start, there are so many schemes are available, and entrepreneurship has become very easy. Only you should have the will to do that. As rightly when Amit Shah said, sir, at any time when you become an entrepreneur, it's only risk factor things. At the same time, you should become a good decision making. And anytime you have to come down and again you have to climb up, that can be done in an entrepreneurship only. So that spirit is also available for an entrepreneur. If in the scheme, as during our honorable Prime Minister's scheme, I would like to point out today the one major thing what was done for MSME industries throughout India was during COVID. During COVID time, I was the president, and we all don't know what to do next. Almost 6 months, all our companies from Indian and Coimbatore were stopped. Then we were all discussing. And as a president, I made a press conference and I appealed to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister and the Reserve Bank Governor. You help us something. You give us at least 20% of extra loan so that the industry will come back and pay you. But if you go to our bankers, why I'm saying this, because going back, bankers will definitely not give us as there is no turnover for the last 6 months. But this honorable Prime Minister and the Finance Minister listened to us, and they gave us a very beautiful one scheme, emergency credit lending scheme. The same 20% was allotted with an insurance. They guaranteed the bankers, and I think to my knowledge, Coimbatore was the first to disperse all those amounts. I was instrumental in that. To my knowledge, the NPS is very, very less. Even when 2, 3, 4 weeks only, I had a discussion with the bank managers here. This is very, very less NPS, and everybody has paid up. If not, the government has not pitched in at that time. Really, I'm telling you, by my experience, micro small industries could have even perished. At least 30, 40, 50%. Now they are all back into the normal stage now. So that is the one thing which I want to register in this forum. And when there was a raw material price hike, that also when we gave a representation from Odisha and I was there, they immediately heard us and they stabilized the raw material prices for MSME. So these factors are all why I'm saying all this, these all needed to safeguard micro and small scale industries in India. See, one study says almost 15 crore people are dependent or small scale industry, MSMEs. So 15 crore people are there. You can, with the family, you all put together, it's more than 40 crore people are dependent on this. Almost 1/3 of our population, the GDP, just imagine. But my view is this has to be decreased. Entrepreneurship quality has decreased. We should upgrade ourselves. Our efficiency should increase. Even though the government is giving us a good hand holding, we should also try to see that we should upgrade and we should all become an exporters. Somewhere further to only the skill development center they introduced, government has introduced, which is our from Odisha also has approached the SAR, for that. So there are so many schemes available. One more scheme I want to highlight today is now for Coimbatore, an MSME technology center has been awarded for 200 crores. It's a huge one. So now we are in the process of DPR study, and if that comes to Coimbatore, the technology center, Coimbatore now actually, my actual study, we have more than 1.5 lakh MSMEs in Coimbatore. It will double. So everybody will have the facility there at technology center. They know how to do the product. Today, a product finding and product doing is very, very difficult. It's very cost. But at the same time, when there's a technology center, if you work there, stipulate there, find out a product, and you are able to market it, then more entrepreneurship will come. The topic today is job seekers to job providers. All these are indirectly and directly helping other new entrepreneurs to emerge in India. only 10 people were employed. Now more than 2 lakh, there is a record. Now more than 2 lakh people are employed by the employees of startup industry. Incubation center is emerging. From Odisha also, we have got our own Atal Innovation Mission. And we were the first in India to have Odisha Defense Innovation Center for the entire Southern Defense Corridor. And we are tied up with IDEX also. And we are now moving into, Coimbatore is moving into defense sector. In another 10 years, this Coimbatore will become a defense supplier. And our main aim is to indigenize all what are being imported in India. So there are so many schemes, so many scopes are available, and the awareness what we should all as an association or like us when we are talking, we should encourage more entrepreneurship in India. That is where India's employment will generate and it will grow. Even though the bigger companies are giving employment, but there is a limited scope only for the employables available. But in micro, small, and for a supply chain to thrive properly, we need micro industries, small industries, medium industries, and large industries. And when you go for a product also, the same thing has to happen. But now that has emerged very well in India. Only thing is we have to take few more steps to attain to its height. And another one, we should all become an exporters. That will be a challenge. Already for that, the quality of the product has to improve. But why I'm saying this is, in those days we are not fully skilled. There was no skill development center at all. We just used to take up a person, we train them in painting, I'm telling the basic, and he'll become a painter in a month's time. But what is the approach, what is the standard procedure, that nobody knows. There was less IITs. Oh, that is all emerging in a very well manner. We have to utilize all those things. And to the next level, if we go in the same stage, I don't have a doubt that from this 15 crores will become 30 crores in the next 4 or 5 years. Then the GDP of the country will just will be doubled. And my view is only when entrepreneurship and micro, small, and medium industries grow, then only the GDP will grow. There the consumption is more, the people involved is more, and we take on board everybody. We board even unskilled people and make skilling is happening there only. Even lesser education people also can be trained properly there, and then there will be definitely a self-made can happen in entrepreneurship, and I think that this government is also supporting in a very well on that. But there are certain things. What I want to tell you is like this credit guarantee schemes are. I'm telling to the son. This credit guarantee scheme till 5 crores, there is no need for any collateral security. If you have a very good project, you can approach the bank and they will give you. Only there is some slightly tinkering things has to happen, like to reduce the insurance charges, to reduce the bank interest there. So if that all small things have happened, sir, we are good of this, you can take it to the government also, so that still more growth will happen there. In those days, when you have a proper security, only the bank will lend. Now that is also been now changed now. If you are capable, if you are able to do a product, if you are able to run an industry, and your project is good, the bankers are ready to lend without any security. 25% margin is enough. That the credit guarantee commission is that, then the credit subsidy scheme is that. So many schemes are there. If you want to take an advantage of all those things, there are various schemes which has definitely turned around in the last 5 or 6 years. Definitely there is a turnaround. And one more thing is we can now as an association, I'll tell you when I was heading, we were able to meet all the ministers as well as the officials, and we were able to put forth our thought from Coimbatore down south here. We were able to put our views there, and we were able to get things done there. And this technology center is also, when I was the president, I voted this, and now it's coming in the DPR stages. Some other person is going to come for Coimbatore, sir, which I want to tell you. And next one, what we are driving is for skill development center. Why am I talking all this in this time is when the ecosystem forms by the government, which that will definitely help the micro, small, and medium enterprises to grow. These industries doesn't have much capital to invest, and now as previous speaker said that now venture capital is there, so angel investors are there. There are now so many schemes available, and if you go to a certain level like a 50 crore, if you become, then they will pull you up and go to 250 crores or 1,000, even 1,000 crores. The first challenge is from 10 lakhs to 1 crore, 1 crore to 50 crores is the challenges now. But definitely there is a roadmap for all those things. And if they are settled, definitely they can succeed and India will have a very good entrepreneurship. And definitely in future, from already we have provided so many jobs. In future, another 5 years, I think we will get the job. This is my view.
Thank you. So please remain in the link. We have interactions, to substantiate. For the last 20 years, almost 20 years, there have been demands from the Coimbatore MSME sector that they should have facilities to supply to the defense sector. Because already earlier, some 2-3 enterprises they were supplying because they were having the expertise to make products for the defense sector. But fortunately, after the Modi government came, about 6 years back, two defense corridors were announced, one for Uttar Pradesh and the second one for Tamil Nadu, connecting Coimbatore, Salem, Hosur, and then Chennai, 5 places. And now this Coimbatore defense corridor is doing very well. Now many of the companies have started supplying different parts to the central government defense sector, and they see very hope this happened because of this government. So thank you.
Can I just ask one question, Ramamurthy? Do you think agricultural
Yes,
reform?
sir, please.
Yeah. Do you think reforms in agriculture will create a new avenue for entrepreneurship, which otherwise may be a little restricted now, if agriculture reforms come?
Exactly, sir. Actually, I also want to say you are asking very right question, sir. See, there should be definitely reforms in agriculture, and if agriculture is really a supplementary for micro and small scale industries, micro small MSMEs develop so many implements for agriculture, for the modern doing for agriculture, sir. So if there is a reform happening in agriculture, so both in agriculture also the employment generation. Economy to a very high level. Definitely.
Thank you.
It is both interdependable also.
Can we invite Madan
Yes, it's working now?
after that?
Yeah, it's working now.
After that, we will have interaction. Madan Gopal ji, we invite you. Shri Madan Gopal ji is a very senior,
Namaste.
yes, personality. He was an IAS officer, was the additional chief secretary of the government of Karnataka. He holds a master's degree in commerce and postgraduate diploma in journalism. He was selected to the IAS service in 1984 and has served in several departments. He is also a visiting professor for International Institute in Bolivia. So now he is the chairman of Triple IT in Nagpur, isn't it, Ji?
It's not triple IT, it is NIT.
NIT, National Institute of Technology. He has served in various departments at senior levels. So with his very long experience, we will be able to benefit from his inputs. So we invite you, Madan Gopal ji.
Namaste, Professor Kangasapati ji,
Namaste.
and Kumar Amit ji, and Ramurthy ji, and all the distinguished participation. Kumar Amit ji, I heard about you through some of my friends. They say my compliments to you because the persons like you, more than anybody, you inspire everyone.
Thank
So
you,
I
sir.
just listening to Mann Ki Baat of Honorable Prime Minister 2 days ago, where he said that very important points he mentioned: intelligence, ideas, and innovation. How they are interlinked. Intelligence, ideas, and innovation. I was verifying in our NIT Nagpur. We have a 12 department, nearly about 6 to 7,000 students there, more than 450 faculty members. The enthusiasm. I interacted with each department for 2 hours with the faculty, and the enthusiasm, which is very, I can't believe that enthusiasm is the prevailing. That about a visibility. I do not want to take up the statistics because the startups, how from 350 in 2014 it became nearly 1 lakh now. how the unicorn have gone up to nearly 125, 130, and then NASCOM study, because a NASCOM study on how the startup India created more than a million jobs. Because I'm saying that this is the startup or a job seek, not they are not job seekers, they are the job providers. So here one important aspect is from startup India to stand up India. So we are aware that Stand Up India, which was launched on the 5th April 2016, where every bank branch, it is all commercial scheduled banks, has to be, each branch has to give 3 entrepreneurs, one from SC, one from ST, one woman, from 10 lakhs to 1 crore. See the galloping effect of such a conducive atmosphere. Very important thing from this one very important scheme for because I was a managing director of the Karnataka State Finance Corporation for 4 years. I've seen this about many years ago. I've seen what are the difficulties of an MSME. The first is I feel that a trust in them. Though we have very strong organizations like Udyog Bharti, Khasya, and various organizations, but their presence in the either in the FICCI or CIC at the entire national level is very minimal. So any important events involving the MSMEs will become a very important role. One point I would like to say that production linked incentive schemes that was introduced, it's making a definite change for MSMEs. Why am I saying repeatedly mentioning MSMEs is the potential of MSMEs to provide both as the job creators as well as the job seekers is phenomenal. I may recall Professor Kangasababadi may recall that great book by J.C. Kumarappa. This is one of the very great Gandhian. He wrote very small book. It's about less than 30 pages. It says about maximizing economy. It's a beautiful concept. Maximizing economy. Instead of creating a 10 billionaires, he said create a 1,000 billion. That's a beautiful concept where they exemplifying that's a maximizing economy that gives the model of the Modi is a maximizing economy. How do we maximizing economy? That's a very important point. And again, the how do we build entrepreneurship? Because I have seen MSMEs, it is not merely training; it's about supportive system and backward and forward linkages. I have seen one is a very important change, which is very visible, is that the monthly returns under the GST implementation scheme is now online. In the past, if you see that it was a MSME equal a consultant. The consultant is don't do free of cost; they have to pay. Now any MSME, because I am in touch with many of my friends on this sector, thanks to my working in State Finance Corporation earlier, their presentation, the way they can file the GST returns online is very simplified. So this simplification process is very important. And one important point I was discussing with some of the friends in Udyog Bharati, 2 points which I have mentioned, I thought that I should bring to the notice at this level. One is that net interest margin of the banks. So NIM, net interest of the bank, net interest margin of the banks, as of now, is very high.
Yeah, they've
So
gone up.
the Udyog Bharati, many of MSME sector, what they recommend is that exempt them for first 5 years. I can say that this simple change, 5 years, and exempt them, don't charge this whatever the now it is very high, both for non-banking financial institutions and as well as the commercial banks. This NIM should not be more than, I'm not saying a total exemption. Don't make it more than 3 to 4%. If it make it 3 to 4%, that is the competitiveness comes under the MSME sector. This is the very important point. The second is that this National Industries Corporation, they lend to the MSMEs. Once the MSME, the concerned industry has to provide a bank guarantee. Despite the bank guarantee, rate of interest is very high. I'm saying there is a critical changes. I'm sure government of India is looking at these things. Don't make it a initial few years. Don't make it a more than 8%. If it is bring it within 8%, this will be the one of the very important change. I would like to say that how I was in the Ministry of Rural Development earlier, many years ago, where the entire streamlining of the self-employment schemes, Nearly in those days we are calibrating 42 to 48% of the employment is in the self-employment. So this each self-employment will provide a generate the jobs. So how the self-employment can trigger a transformational change. So definitely these are the very positive atmosphere, very innovative approaches are there. One important thing is, since I'm in NIT now, previously I was in one of the well-known engineering college in Karnataka as a trustee as well as Aman. We started a MSME technical center. What Professor Dr. Sri Ramurthy ji mentioned, a group of educational institution, technical education, providing them with a technical center for MSMEs. That will provide promotion. It's not necessarily just IT, BT. There are in agriculture, health, education, and artisanship. These are the areas that generates employment, that makes the transformational change from the job seekers to job givers, job creators. This is a very visible change. I compliment our own Sampasad Mukherjee Research Foundation taking up this topic. Sorry, in the beginning it was not audible, and I was told there is some network problem there. So because of that initial conversation, I could hear. With this, I thank again. I'm sure, Kumar Amitji, you are a source of inspiration to everyone, because you are the person like you will motivate, because right from your inspiration, your work, you are shown how they not learning while doing. You are a classic example of that. With this, I conclude my words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ji. Now, can we
Yeah,
interaction?
yes. If
But
there are
before that,
questions.
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask you what challenges you faced and how did you face them?
I think a lot of challenges to begin with. I think the first and the foremost challenge when you begin with an idea is how do you make people believe in that idea, right? So the first ones are your family, your friends. I think they are the first ones to believe in you. That okay, you are going forward with something. You've done something credible in life. So of course, whatever you will decide in terms of the course of action, it would be meaningful and justified. So I think that was the first victory. Uh, Moving beyond, it was since our work requires a lot of banking partners that we work with. So how do you make believe the banks, right, that whatever you are starting, because banks have a lot and very strong compliance mechanism. So for them to work with a startup, so I have two incidences to share. One is from Razorpay and one is from Castler. So Razorpay, almost it took us almost a year or so to convince our first banking partner. So typically in a payment gateway kind of business, you need to have an acquiring partner, which is a bank. And the first bank during that time was HDFC, who trusted in Razorpay that okay, fine, let's work together. And then there was no stopping after that. Similarly in Castler also, I think it was quite a struggle. We reached out to banks. वो भाव नहीं देते थे कि यार तुम लोग क्या कर रहे हो पता नहीं how will the compliances happen, how will you create something which is new and meaningful. There are already so many people there in the ecosystem, etc., etc. So a lot of questions, and of course those are natural as well. So हमने कोशिश किया, हमने convince किया उनको. We tried to convince them as much as possible. It took us almost 10 months to convince a single bank, right? And after one bank got convinced, today we are working with almost 12 banks of the country, राइट. सो एक बैंक को कन्वर्ट करने में शायद एक साल लग गए, बट उसके बाद 11 बैंक कन्विंस हो गए अगले एक साल में. So it was just a matter of time, I think. So just staying glued to the idea that you have started off, and also the kind of work that we are doing, I think it has got a very strong and meaningful exposure in terms of government sector. So I'll just give you an example कि क्यों ये relevant है. So though it is not, but I'll just go a little bit out of context at why it is meaningful. So, say for example, in terms of escrow banking, why it becomes more meaningful in government enterprises, right? So, just giving you an example of a Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, right? A scheme which runs from, at a prime minister level kind of ecosystem, right, and managed by the entire ministry, and then going to the state level, and then going to the districts and panchayats and contractors, right? And there is a huge mechanism where a flow of money and the flow of funds flows through that. Our kind of mechanism it involves that there is a transparency at each and every layer, right? And you have all sort of protocols which are available at every level. So say for example, if a somebody at a prime minister's PMO level wants to see the entire interface, entire dashboard, where project wise what is the schemes running, how are those going to the rural and remotest of the places, and also to make sure that the people who are working in terms of say contractors, right, how they are also responsible for the work that they are doing. So a certain amount of money lies in the bank, right? So that can be escrowed, right? So that 25% of the money, say for example, for 5 years, if the road has any kind of damage, right, you are liable for this. You are responsible for this. So this 25% of the money lies in an escrow account, which can be a PSU bank escrow account, and we are kind of facilitators in the ecosystem. So these kind of nitty-gritties are also part of the ecosystem that we are trying to build.
No, I just want to ask Amit one thing before I let others ask. There are times for every entrepreneur when they want to give up because there are too much challenges, and we see a lot of young people start as an entrepreneur but they give up. What would be your message to them in terms of not giving up and just holding on to that idea with a conviction?
मैं बहुत जगह बोल चुका हूँ, बट मैं फिर बोलूँगा आज. So I've said this many times, and that always reminds me of a शिवमंगल सिंह सुमन line, right? क्या हार में क्या जीत में, किंचित नहीं भयभीत में, कर्तव्य पथ पर जो मिला ये भी सही वो भी सही, right? So whatever it is, right, in the journey of life, whatever you are trying to move in terms of entrepreneurship also, I think it is very very relevant that you will win, you will lose, but it's important to tread the path. It's important to keep moving, every day you feel like, in entrepreneurship it becomes like every day you feel कि यार आज छोड़ दें सब कुछ, कुछ नौकरी कर लेते हैं यार, right? So that's very natural, it comes to all of us, right? It's at least on 31st or a first, you get a paycheck, right? And that's the biggest bribe that any job seeker looks for. But being a check receiver to being a check giver, right? The day I pay my salaries to my employees, I feel really happy that I'm contributing to few odd people in the community, right? I'm giving something back to the society. I think that feeling in itself is very very pivotal and important, at least for people like us, and that is the reason that I think we exist, and that is the reason of our existence. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, any questions? Okay, please introduce yourself and then.
Sir, I just want,
Rama, one minute.
Sir, I just want to add up one thing. Can I talk?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. See, for further development of entrepreneurship now, one point which I want to tell is, also we already recommended to the Reserve Bank Governor also and to the Finance Ministry, this banking sector, it should be for MSME, there should be some priority for this. That is the calculation of all, how they lend the loan, how they invest everything. No? In today's scenario, for both the very large scale industry and corporate industry, how it is for giving a loan, how it has been calculated. The same method they are calculating for micro and small scale industries also. In our cases for micro and small scale industries, we have our own limited capital. I'm talking about even a micro and a small scale who can even generate 10 or 50 people of employment. I'm not talking about the people who employ more than 300 or 400. So for them, their equity is very small and they get a loan, and the ratio will be also, it will not match the bigger large scale industries. This we are continuously representing. I want to take this forum also to make a note of this.
Yes.
And it should be represented to the Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank, and even Mr. Gurumurthy ji is in Reserve Bank of India as a director, and he knows about MSME very well. That there should be phenomenal changes in that sense. See, for example, in your turnover, they give 20% of the working capital. This is good for a 1,000 crore company. For a company which is doing for 5 crores, 2 crores, they apply the same thing. And the ratios also in today's scenario, everything, what all they calculate, all through different softwares, it is not matching for micro and small scale industries. And if there is a phenomenal changes, if you are able to, this government is able to come to this, entrepreneurship will definitely go in a very fast manner, sir.
Thank you.
This observation I am doing it for the past 4 years, and I have represented also. But somewhere, in large scale picture, everybody has to represent this to the governor or the president. Let them take a separate committee for this. I'm talking about the reality. See, we cannot give, we are not affordable to give 100 crores of security or even to the bankers. So that changes should happen in a simple thing. For a large scale industry, same ratio is applied in India. For a small scale industry, same ratio is applied.
Okay.
That should be distinguished, and there should be a priority for micro small industries and for agriculture also, as rightly said in the before meeting. So this you can make a note of it in today's forum, which I want to tell you.
Yes, yes, yes.
We are representing, but we are not got the research info.
Okay,
A
okay.
question. Please introduce
Sir,
yourself.
as you were
That's why
telling,
coming to me.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself
yeah,
first.
my name is JobProviders. I am from Faculty of Law, Delhi University. So my question is that before getting into law, I was into graphic design and all those studies. So in this new era of entrepreneurship, I think it is not just for people to not just stay limited to their country, maybe find their customers outside their boundaries and all, outside the borders. So what are the steps that governments are taking in a way to teach them how to reach the customers outside the country as well, so that they can expand their possibility of market and not just limit themselves to the
This is for me.
only.
You asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I think so. Let's keep aside government first of all, right? Let's think that the way you'd see the whole information technology, which has led to a spurt in social media, right? Today you would see post I think COVID, a lot of D2C brands have come in India, right? What are the forums that they are using? So they are using Instagram, they are using Twitter, they are using Facebook, right? So today, in one of the surveys that I was reading, I think Facebook, in lot many ways, is one of the biggest business providers, right? Forget about India, in the entire ecosystem, in the entire value chain, right? So similarly for Instagram. So I think there is a lot of social media uses, right? So you use it for what purpose is very, very relevant. So you can use all these forums. I would give an example. When we were running, so I was also a founder of one of the Film Elite Fest, and we were running the entire series of these events across India. So what we did, it was a very simple thing. We did it, we've posted everything on YouTube, right? Once we posted everything on YouTube, it became, we had a followership of more than 1 million, right? It became automatically there were ads were coming in. So it's about taking, as Patikrit sir also rightly
It's
pointed
not
out.
audible.
No,
Not audible.
Yeah, as Patikrit sir also rightly pointed out, right? Sir, it's about that big leap of faith, right? Everything changes from there. The whole dramatics changes. You have to believe in that idea. So today in the contemporary world, I think it's very connected, right? So say for example, I'll give you an example of a transaction, right? So if you want to do an international transaction, how much time does it take for you to do an international transaction? There are so many companies facilitating you, right? So reaching out to consumers across India, we are very, very connected, right? And especially with the current regime which is into existence, right? The value proposition that India brings on the table, I think everybody looks to you with a different dignity and different respect, right? So I think things have become easy in lot many ways, the way we are perceived, and you can use these instruments as these winds of change to leverage on your business.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. So,
Yes.
my name is Orkudik Datta. I am also from Faculty of Law LC1. So, yes, sir. So when it comes to risk taking and looking at the collaterals at the pre-boon level, just when your startup has just grown and you have acquired some angel investors or investors, so what should be the mechanism to imbibe the feeling of sufficiency that yes, I can take this certain step, I can get into a larger market? And what are the insights of yours? Because Razorpay is like, we all know about it. So if you can
So,
provide some
so
insights.
see, so I can tell you my story, right? But will my story be helpful to you? Might be not. I'm just being honest and candid in what I'm trying to confess, right? It was a so lot of times what happens is that you also get lucky, right? So it is also an element of luck. So a lot of times you feel, and that should bring humility in you as a person, in you as an organization, right? क्योंकि अगर क्लास में मैं पढ़ रहा था, मेरे साथ 50 लोग और पढ़ रहे थे, तो मुझ में ऐसे कोई सुरखाब के पर नहीं लगे थे कि मैं सबसे होशियार था, right? लेकिन I was doing the right thing at the right time, right? That is what changes the narrative. So being there, so demonetization, as I said, right? It was a good opportunity for all the fintechs to come and see and explore, right? It picked up, we picked up. Now, again, giving you an example. Say for example, UPI. I have talked about UPI multiple times during this conversation. Also, when we used to go to a merchant or reach out to a consumer, used to tell them, say, hey, look, yeah. We are Razorpay and we want to provide you our services. They used to say कि ठीक है मतलब क्या दोगे आप. तो वी यूज टू से कि हमारे पास क्रेडिट कार्ड भी है, डेबिट कार्ड भी है, नेट बैंकिंग भी है, यूपीआई भी है, सब ले लो. They used to say credit card, debit card, there are already too many players, so we can give you UPI business, because it is very insignificant portion of the entire business. We said okay, fine, let's get into the UPI business. That was not even 0.5% of the entire value chain of payment business when we started with UPI, because we were one of the first few companies who partnered with NPCI to make sure that we are launching UPI across the country. Now that 0.5% of the value chain became 55 and 60% of the business. Who will stop me from the growing? Who will stop me from growing of to the level that I want? So there were two things. One was the macro level change, right? That, so the macro level change was beyond my consideration. It was happening, and at its own pace, moving at the own fast pace, and people were accepting it also, because people were getting literate. As I said, jam, right? So Jandhan, Aadhaar, and mobiles. Imagine the penetration of smartphones in the country, right? Who could have believed that in the remotest of the places, you will have access to these smartphones, right? So what we did not do, government did for us, right? So they created an ecosystem for us. We were just a vehicle in that ecosystem, an instrument in that ecosystem. So a lot of times it's about taking the right decisions at the right moment, and then utilizing that decision to the benefit of your organization, and also have a deep understanding of the ecosystem. I think these are three fundamentals that I believe that once you start a business, you should look at a macro level. You should understand what is your potential, what is where you can leverage. You should have a strong founding team where people can question each other, right? Because that is again very important. Because if the founding team people don't question each other, there is nothing that you are going to achieve, right? And you should be free flowing discussion, right? So these are few fundamentals I think which are very important, looking at both the lens, macro and micro lens.
So we have among us today Priyanka ji. Priyanka ji recently has.
So I have a question, sir.
Yes, please. Introduce yourself and.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Sir, good evening. Good evening. With respects to Professor Kanaya Sabhabadi, sir, and all the guests today, all of them, and also the special guest of Razorpay. I thank you for being here and having a deliberation. And I'll just give an overview of what it is, what I felt as soon as I heard about Razorpay, right? I don't know that Razorpay is an Indian company, so that's the first point. And usually the MasterCard and Visa card, they are all the people into this business actually. When Razorpay came, the name and the branding, everything was perfect, and it was great to see about it, right? And after knowing that it's our firm, then I really was amazed to hear this. And now we are going to compete with the international markets with MasterCard and Visa card.
So what's your question? So what's your question? What is your question,
one
sir?
question. Yeah, that's my first question. Are we competing with MasterCard and Visa card? Is that a possibility? And second point is we are going to go with UPI into African nations and other things. Or is Razorpay going into this other continents in expanding its business? So these are the 2 points.
So first of all, thank you for your question. So first of all, I am no longer part of Razorpay. So I have a new startup. So I was part of Razorpay for 6 years. I've left Razorpay, and this is a new startup that I have started, which is Castler. We are into escrow banking space. Now coming back to your question on Master Visa. तो जब मैं ये मानता हूँ, और मुझे लगता है कि ये चीज़ आपको कोई लाइन को छोटी कैसे दिखाओगे आप, लाइन मिटा के? हाउ विल यू मेक श्योर दैट द लाइन इज बिगर? यू ड्रॉ अ बिगर लाइन, राइट? So if Master and Visa have a huge, so India doesn't have to compete with anyone, right? India has already started its network, which is RuPay, right? We are going across continents, we are covering boundaries, we have just making sure that the amount of dependence that we had on these acquiring networks like Master and Visa, they are gone. That's where I think there's a lot of pressure on banks also to issue RuPay cards, right? So I think it is in a transitional shift right now, but definitely for sure this is, I mean, RuPay would give a huge run for money to Master and Visa in due course of time, the way government of India is approaching it. Also on UPI, I think UPI is one thing where, so you need to understand the nature of transactions, right? Before you understand UPI. So there are two kinds of transactions in the ecosystem. One is the card present transactions. Card present transactions are everywhere you swipe the card, right? So that is called card present transactions. Everywhere there is a cardless transaction. That's where companies like Razorpay come into existence, right? So that's where our moat, or UPI has a moat, right? That's where UPI has a moat because there is no card. It's a virtual thing, right? It's connected to, so typically it has also sunken the whole wallet business because your account is connected to your bank account, right? And you can just seamlessly just enter a pin and do a transaction. So in terms of the behavior of the customers across the globe, I think Africa still would have an acceptance, Gulf countries still would have an acceptance, but in West still it is long overdue because West has a different culture where people love, having cards in their pocket, right? So you can't just, defy that kind of atmosphere. But yes, definitely UPI has a huge opportunity in developing countries also and few of the developed nations as well.
Sir, sir, myself Vaishnagya,
Yeah.
a
No, you
bachelor's
got
in
to speak louder. Last time also we said the same thing, so that everybody there also can hear you.
Louder.
Thanks. Sir, myself Vaishnagya, a bachelor's of pharmacy guy from Delhi Pharmaceutical Science and Research University. Sir, my question is, sir, today companies are trying to win heart of the customer by showing that they have so many payments gateway of so many banks like Amex, DBS. But later on, these companies are turning out to be a scam. So, sir, is getting a payment gateway for a company is so easy that these scammers are easily getting it?
So I think your question is very good, first of all. So let's understand that when an ecosystem changes, right? So 2016 onwards, there was a change in the ecosystem, the way payments were happening in this country, right? And with that advent, there are also new companies coming into foray. Any new changes, as I said in the first note, if you would remember, that it also brings problems, right? So there would be good operators, there would be bad operators in whatever you'll do. You can't just, now if you'll see the way RBI, if you are a student of, this kind of business, or if you have studied payment gateway, you would see that RBI has come with the latest norm on a PAPG regulation. I would say they have written down the norms. They have made sure that AML, which is anti-money laundering, and any sort of that activities, wherever these kind of payment gateways, none of them have got the license. So almost it has been curbed down to the minimal. So at a given point of time where government was instrumental in facilitating it, now government is also trying to regulate this whole ecosystem where these frauds could be mitigated. So I think, so that is the reason that, you know with a certain change there are problems, and then how the regulators are behaving to those problems and how people are making peace with that problem. So this is a nature of any ecosystem where new things come into foray.
Well, I just wanted to introduce Priyanka Sharma ji. Today she is in the audience, but I'm sure in some day in the future we'll have a discussion with her as well. She has written a book named Mahadevi. It's about goddess Durga, and she has been also into the corporate world, and then she took the decision of being an author. So Priyanka ji, we would like to hear a bit about from yourself, about your transition from the corporate world into being an author and writing on something which is very important in today's world in terms of connecting with India's heritage, and how that we do not need to take summons from the West in terms of women empowerment. In our society, from the classical age, women have always had the primacy in terms of governance or in everything else. Over to you.
Yeah, it was a very difficult decision for me to leave everything. And I'm an entrepreneur now, so it is a business of its kind and a very different business where you do not know where to begin from. You're a writer, but once you've finished writing, you turn into a businesswoman and you wear that hat and now begin thinking how to promote it. Now I've written. What do I do with it now? So it's a very different kind of business and not talked about so much in India as of now. And the decision, I had to say no to many offers, and the greed gets the better of you many times, and you wonder whether I'm doing the right thing. And like you rightly said, there are many times when I wonder, should I pick up this job? Should I go back to corporate? 22 years in corporate, and then leaving everything and wondering, should I stick to the savings that I've made, or grow something more? And there'll be a long period of time when you'll not make anything. So yes, it was a tough decision, and now I'm playing that role of the marketeer, and stopped writing for a while.
Yes, so do you have that kind of a support system or an ecosystem, what we generally see in case of other, say, fintech and everything else?
Not so much for the writer, I would say. Not so much. It's a very different ballgame. Even the Facebook and Instagram doesn't have a separate section for a writer and author to make it into a business. Either you're a business page or you're a writer's page. I've always had that gripe. If I'm a writer, I'm also a businesswoman.
Right.
Why can't you merge the two? So that's something you need to think about. And you keep writing to them and there's no response. So,
Yeah, any other question?
Any other?
I just want to ask one thing. I'm Advocate Ankit Gupta and also the District President of BJP West District. This was a very eye-opening session, and thanks to Batikit Bhaiya, which I have been associated with him for last 15 years. There is a situation, I think, right now in the country, if we see all the political debates, and even the debates right now going on before the 5 states elections. And the question which we generally feel, why I'm saying this was a very eye-opening session, because I got to know about Amit sir and the 2 lakh people who are working in startup right now. It's a very accurate data which I just got to know. There is an atmosphere of or a narrative built up by the other political parties that there is unemployment. So I want to understand, sir, the data which we have heard about and the startups we have heard about in this session. Is there any ministry or a government body which are dealing with this data so that we can also have a counter narrative, or we can counter these questions, or we can answer these questions? Because this is very limited. I mean, the size of the audience is very limited, but the information has a very crucial role to play.
So let me just answer this question, sir, with your permission. What happens when we define how many jobs have been created generally, they look at the EPFO numbers, how many provident fund has been created, right? Now, suppose there are around 4 crore to 5 crore micro enterprises in this country. There's somebody who is a tailoring shop, who is one self-employed. Then through the Mudra Yojana, and he takes a loan, it starts expanding because they never got the institutional support before. So if there are 5 crore enterprises in the micro sector, and if say 4 crore takes a loan, because if you look at the cumulative number, 41 crore loan have been given to in terms of 23 lakh crore. So what happens, a person takes a loan, around 4 crore such enterprises, and they expand by additionally employing 1 more person. So you create employment for 4 crore people, you create livelihood for them. It will not get reflected in terms of a provident fund number, but they're getting productively employed. They're getting a livelihood. Or say somebody who was driving a car for somebody, and then he takes a decision to take a loan, buy a car, and become a driver partner of Ola or an Uber. So he is today self-employed, and tomorrow he might buy another car and give employment to another person as a driver. That does not get reflected in terms of NSSO numbers. So I think the definition of what is livelihood, I think the focus of the government is more in terms of creating livelihood and self-employment rather than only creating jobs, because jobs have a limitation. And unfortunately, our mechanism in terms of how we define creation of livelihood is still in a Jurassic era. That requires major transformation. For example, what is the government trying to do in terms of PM Vishwakarma or PM Swanidhi? The thing is that there are a large number of people in this country who are involved in a specific trade craft, but they never knew how to market the product. They never knew how to expand the sphere of their influence or the market. Government through Vishwakarma and Swanidhi are giving them that kind of an institutional support, which is not just money, but also giving them, say, 5 days, 10-day workshop training in terms of how to market your product, how to brand. Very simple thing, how to have a visiting card, how to talk, training them on soft skills. you are creating something which, before, say, the British era, you didn't have the culture of jobs in this country. And yet we had one of the largest GDPs of the world. The job culture came with the British. And unfortunately, we are still hooked onto that. So I think what Ramamurthuji talked about, the clusters, in fact, there is a village, there is a place in Gujarat, I forgot the name of the place. There's nobody in that place where anybody has crossed high secondary, and everybody is an entrepreneur. So unfortunately, what is happening, I see a lot of people who are graduates and unemployed. I don't see people who are 10th class or 9th fail who are unemployed, because they're willing to take the risk and do something. So I think in terms of definition, that has to make a quantum leap by the Ministry of Statistics and all that, because it is not happening. There's a lot of fake, or rather, I would rather say misrepresentation of data happening. And the reality is not being reflected in terms of the micro enterprises for the first time getting an opportunity to expand and creating livelihood for crores of people. That is not getting reflected in terms of the EPFO numbers. That's my view. Yes. Sir, if you want to add.
Sir, I like to add that
post 2014.
actually, these things, for the 2 lakh people employed, what I said, it can be taken up from Startup India initiative of Government of India. You've got Startup India seed fund also there, it comes under the MSME ministry also, and under Artificial Innovation Mission also. In that they say, in 2016, from startup who have started, they have employed 10 people. In 2022, they have employed 238,767 people. So the growth rate, if you see, from 2016 to 2022, it cannot be measured. From 10 to 2,37,767, and still it's growing. So this way, entrepreneurship is growing, and they are employing more people. This you can take the data from Startup India initiative of Government of India, sir. So from MSME ministry, if you go also, there are data, and as rightly said by sir, still more people are employed in the unorganized sector, which there is no data also. But
yes,
now,
it's 8 crore entrepreneurs, Prime Minister mentioned.
Yeah.
So they are job creators. Yeah, any other question from those who have not yet asked? Please.
Yeah.
Ramamurthy sir, I have a question for you. Since you talked about the MSME sector.
That will go.
So when we talk about MSME sector in this segment, we have a large number of micro
lucky.
enterprises.
I know.
We have a decent
That's why I
number
threw
of
it.
small enterprises, but we hardly have any medium enterprises. We refer to this as the problem of missing middle. So what do you think is the major problem why the majority of micro and small enterprises are not able to convert to the medium scale?
That is where it's a very right question. But actually, our objective is from micro, we should migrate into small, and from there, we should migrate into medium. See, definitely there are challenges in that. So that's what in my previous, I told that there should be a reform in banking sector also to grow. We don't know, micro and small people don't know how to invest. So there also we are struggling and we are not able to move on. There we need the support of the government, so that if there is a changes in the banking reforms also, we can grow. But in today's scenario, you have got venture capital, and if your product and your company is right, the venture capital and investors will level. And now in CP also, the MSMEs are listed. So from the if you go and approach there also, it will grow. So now there are plenty of opportunities. Of course, by an entrepreneur, still we are not, we are also reluctant and we are conservative to a certain level. We should change our mind also, and we should bring in more partners along our side. See, when we have become an entrepreneur, we want to have our own company and say, this is my company, I will be the owner forever. We don't bring more people inside as a board of directors. Those things also we should change. And those people who have all changed, their company has grown. In Coimbatore also I can say so many examples. From small they have become large scale industries also. There is an example in Coimbatore of so many. But you want to just move on and see to that you are bringing in more people inside in your board. And as rightly said, you have to listen to others also and move on if you want to go. And not an individual decision, it should be the decision by everybody. In that case, I think we can grow. And now there are opportunities to grow now, definitely.
Okay, one last question before we wind this up. Anyone? Okay, in that case, we come to a conclusion, and we'll continue with this series of programs. We'll have something very similar probably in the next 2 weeks again. But we want this kind of engagement to make the young generation understand the challenges and at the same time the opportunities. Entrepreneurship is something where we only talk about the success. The challenges and the failure part nobody talks about. It's the churning that people go through. Then these organizations are created where you have 250, 500 crore valuations. But the churning part is very important, and I think I personally believe from childhood entrepreneurship should be taught to everybody. That is something which is very, very important, and I'm sure in due course in the national education policy it will also get its own and of course the soft skills, because I think everybody eventually will have to market themselves before they can market a product, and that is where I think a lot of people extremely talented falter because of the communication skill. And I think I'm sure we will work out something on that area also. So thank you so much, everyone.
One
Thank
final
you, Kanakji.
point.
Yes, sir, please.
One final point. Kumar Amit was mentioning about the difficulties in banking. When he was mentioning it, I remembered, we have to understand a lot has changed over the last 9 years. In fact, tectonic change to encourage entrepreneurship. We have several schemes initiated by the government to promote entrepreneurship for different sections of people, women, SC, ST, educated people, lesser educated people. There are different schemes. I remember some 20, 25 years back, even 10 years back, when we used to meet entrepreneurs during our studies, one of the first things they used to say was, sir, we don't have banking, banks are not helping at all. I remember one classic case. One youngster, in those days youngster, now he would be around in his 40s, 45, around 45 or so. This person, third standard failed. So he wanted to start his own business, highly entrepreneurial. His name is Sundaram. So he wanted to do his own business. All the banks turned down his request. Nobody gave money, even willing to listen. So finally he went to his mother. In India, all our mothers have their own separate accounts. So his mother was having 25,000 rupees in those days by selling milk. Generally, in villages, ladies take care of the cows and then. So he took that as seed money, and with that money he initiated his venture. Of course, he went to the local financiers because bankers were not willing to giving interest at a very high rate of interest. If you convert it into percentage, it would be 150%, 200%. He started his venture. You will be surprised to know he developed a machine called compacting machine. In Tirupur, in Ludhiana also, all these hosiery centers, they have this machine. They use this machine. After making this innerwears, whether it is baniyan or other items, these products have to go through this compacting machine to remove these shrinkages. At that time, 15 years back, there was only one American company that was selling this machine throughout the world. They were the sole producers, sole makers, manufacturers, sole sellers. This gentleman, Sundaram, borrowing money from his mother and local financiers, he developed a machine that costed one third of the cost of the American company. At that time, American company's cost was 1.20 crores, almost 1.20 crores, 120 lakhs. But this gentleman made the same machine for 40 lakhs with higher features. Within 2-3 years, he was able to throw the American company out of India, and about 5-6 years back, he was the only company selling this machine, not just in India, all our neighboring textile countries, whether it is Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. So, in spite of all difficulties, bankers having turned him away from the bank, he succeeded because of the willpower. So, if you have that willpower, you can certainly succeed. That is what these entrepreneur stories teach us. And now, this is the most favorite time for our youngsters, for those who want to enter into business. You have educational qualification, and if you see the background of Indian clusters, almost 90% of the original promoters are very ordinary people, 5th standard, 4th. In fact, we have made several studies. In Tirupur, for example, a foreigner from London Business School, he's an Indian teaching in London Business School. He came and took up a study. That study showed that 75% of the exporters of Tirupur have education below 10th standard. Below 10th standard. If I remember right, 25% below 5th standard. We made a study in among diamond exporters, Ahmedabad and Surat. You will be surprised to know some 20+% of people, exporters, did not even went to school in their lifetime. So with all their difficulties, they became very successful entrepreneurs. So with kind of education that you have now, the facilities that you have now, and Modi government has given so many schemes. I lost count, maybe 15, 20, much more. To develop entrepreneurship alone, you can certainly enter into this field and become very, very successful people. Only thing is you need willpower, like the willpower of...
Just one line, sir, I
Yes.
wanted to add, which is like a life of an entrepreneur. That is in Majrooh Sultanpuri's line. मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया.
So I would like you to give a vote of thanks to Madan Gopal.
Oh, yes.
So you just vote of thanks to both of them.
Dear Sri Ramamurthy ji, Sri Madan Gopal ji, we thank both of you for joining this discussion online, taking away your valuable time and offering very useful inputs. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We would request you to felicitate
Oh, yes.
Amit. Ramamurthy ji and Madan Gopal ji is not physically here.
Yes, yes.
But someday in the future we'll
Yes.
be honored to do that.
Yeah, definitely, sir. We wanted to do that. And when I will do it, definitely I will do everything.
You have to come here one day, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
the very best.
definitely will come, sir.
You should soon become...
Thank you. There are refreshments outside. You can join in them.
You have to give it to
Thank you so
them.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks to both of you also. You also have to share your experiences.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
You have to share in little more detail. Of course, now this is for 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
We have a business.